Hello folks and welcome. Linux Mint 21.2 Cinnamon has officially been released as of July 16th, 2023. So Linux Mint 21.2 comes in three flavors, cinnamon, mate, or I used to call mate. My Argentinian wife reminds me of that occasionally. Anyways, cinnamon, mate, and XFCE. Today I'm going to talk about the cinnamon desktop. I'm going to give you some tips and tricks for new users. And I'll say welcome. So a 1920 by 1080 is what I'm filming in today. My video will have timelines and chapters. So welcome folks, one more time. All right, so before I talk about first steps, let's talk about documentation. What's new? All right, new features. You also may want to release the look at the release notes also. So I did a previous video on the Linux Mint 21.2 beta, and that video is very similar to this one, except I didn't have any tips and tricks in that one. Well, I may have a couple of them, but this is more detailed today. So 21.2 is going to be supported until 2027. Hopefully that was big enough. Let me make it bigger. Slick Greeter. It's your login screen. You can click the language and you get more keyboard layouts. And also on-screen keyboard has some configurability. The software manager has a new UI or user interface look, and I'll point to that in a minute. And I'll talk a little bit about Flatpak software too. The file manager has been updated, and I'll show you what the version of that is a little bit later. But I'll be talking a little bit about thumbnails. It's quite zippy. So someone asked the other day on my beta video, doesn't appear to be anything new. Actually, there is quite a bit. And I actually pointed this out also on that video. 168 new features and user visible changes. And I believe there's a lot of things under the hood also. Some of these things you can read. So again, the three flavors of desktops that Mint currently has for 21.2 is cinnamon, mate, what I used to refer to as mate. Again, my bride of many, many years is Argentinian, and she reminds me of those words once in a while. Mate is a beverage that in her country, Argentina, that they use. Anyways, going off on a tangent here. Cinnamon, mate, and XFCE. I will be doing some extra videos on these two a little bit later. Look and feel. And some bubbles that pop up, these little blue guys. Icons, mono icons, not symbolic. And XDG. And this particular screen is, or this area here under themes is where most people head to, well, to decorate their desktop with different kind of color icons and stuff. This is different. And I'll talk about that actually. So notifications now has this little blue bar, whether you have the notification pop up on your top screen or bottom screen, that's also configurable. And again, I'll be talking about lots of little tips today. Gesture support. That's for touchpads, touchscreens, and tablets. Okay. The touchpads, the settings is a little bit different than gesture control. I'll talk about the touchpad part versus the touchscreen part a little bit. Okay, so it's a little misconception there. Warpinator has some security bug fixes, and if you are going to use a firewall with Warpinator, then don't forget the rules. There's some rules that you can activate. Artwork, some gorgeous looking artwork, and main components. So Linux Mint 21.2 as of July 16th was available for upload. The official version uses a Cinnamon 5.8 series. The Linux kernel by default is Linux Mint 5.15. However, a 5.19 is available for you kernel aficionados, and that's done through this area down here, your system updater. I may touch upon that a little bit later, but not right now. Based off of Ubuntu 2204, there's also LMDE5. That would be the Linux Mint Debian edition. It's also available on Linux Mint's website. in the home page under downloads right here. Okay, in general though, Linux Mint 21.2, this is coming directly off of Mint, Cinnamon, Mate, XFCE. I sometimes call it Mate, and I'm always corrected by my wife. Anyways, let's move on. All right, release notes, I do recommend that you're reading if you're about to install that. All right, help, web forums, IRC chat. I'm not part of this, by the way. I do make videos, but not part of this group. But in case you need some help, you may want to check those folks out. Also, maybe you want to contribute to Clem and his great team. They've done a lot of work over the years. All right, first steps. First thing you'll notice when you install this thing is, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, is the desktop color part. This is now different than the previous version. You got the dark, you got the light, and you got the mixed. Then you got the different colors. This will immediately change the colors of the file manager. Okay, your choice. I'll close that. I'll come back to that a little bit later. System snapshots, I encourage that you actually launch that and activate that. Just follow the directions. And it will start making snapshots of your system files as soon as it's active. And usually you stayed logged in for 5 minutes or more. Let's put it that way. You never know when you need those. It is not making backups of your personal files unless you altered the settings in TimeShift. And I personally just recommend backing up your system in a different way. Not your system files, sorry, your personal files. Okay, investigate the driver manager if you get like different graphics cards like NVIDIA. Update manager, absolutely for sure. Make sure you launch it and get all your updates. So since this system was just released, there will be some updates obviously coming. System settings, I'm going to talk about a little bit more intensely, because I'm going to give you lots of tips and tricks. Software manager, I'll just briefly open this and let you see the user interface. Search keys at the top now, and a lot of things have 2 versions. You'll see the drop down arrows, 2 different versions. Like that's for the system package, and this is FlatHub. Sometimes even different screenshots. And then also pay attention to the download space required, or disk space. In general, Flatpak software is more bloated. In other words, it's self-contained and has a lot more bits and bytes, and it takes a little bit more space on your disk. Some people will use the reference runs in an isolated environment, but in general, it's larger downloads and more consumption of disk space, and there might be many reasons why you want Flatpak software or not. Okay, that's 104 megabytes. That one is 3.5 gigabytes on your disk, to give you that example. Okay. Other than that, make this full screen. You have featured, categories, top rated. Again, some of these are tagged. You can see flat. That doesn't mean that if you just click that you can't find the other version. You can by just doing that. Don't forget there's a search feature in here too. And how many packages are actually available, I'll open that up in Synaptic after I close this screen. And then I'll continue with the system settings. All right, so that was Software Manager. Firewall ScuffW comes turned off. You can turn it on. And if you are going to use like Warpinator for file sharing, then don't forget the rules. Okay, so release notes, help, contribute, welcome. First steps. Close. I'm only going to open this briefly and then I'm going to close it. 71,323 packages are listed, 2164 are installed. You can also use Terminal to install software. That's how I installed this simple screen recorder software. Where's it coming from? It's coming from Mint and Ubuntu. If you're running the LMDE 5 version, that would be a Debian. Alt and F4. Now, I am planning on making some videos for Mate and XFCE later on. Just FYI, in case you like those desktops. All right. This menu is resizable now. So you will see a lot of changes under the hood, and there's no reference to this one. Grab a hold of the corner. Okay. This resizes like an XFCE desktop. You can also right click on the Mint icon, hit configure, go to menu, and also alter these numbers to bigger sizes for icons. I recommend screenshots anytime you alter numbers, by the way. You do have a screenshot tool built right into the menu. Let me click out of this for a second and type in SC. Screenshot tool is right here. Screen window selection. Very simple tool to use. I encourage that you use that, especially for new users. Alright, so now that you see how I resized the box itself, you have a search feature, and I'm really not going to walk you through the menus. This is more about, well, tips today. System settings. Let me start off here with backgrounds. Some people call them wallpapers. Anyways, backgrounds, wallpapers, whatever you call them, it's the picture that's on the back. I also have some colorful ones. You can see that my calendar is see-through. That's a desk lit. It's normally not here. But I'll point out where it's installed though, or where you can install it yourself. Alright, so different folders. You also have another tool in settings where you can play your backgrounds as a slideshow. All you do is activate that and it starts cycling every so many minutes, whatever your time frame is. You want to play them in sequential or random order, your choice. You also have a picture aspect that you can alter. These are not grayed out. I can't click on them because this is currently running. This is, again, this video is made for new users. Alright, so that's backgrounds. If I needed to deactivate that, I just turn it off and I'm done. Effects, if you don't like them, turn them off. I like them. Font selection, don't like the sizes, maybe you want it bigger. Well, then make it bigger or slide it bigger. Also, there's text scaling. Be careful with that one though. Okay, let's talk about themes for a second. I'm going to open up the file manager Nemo for a second. First of all, I'm going to point out this has been updated. So Nemo 5.8.4. And I am going to open up pictures for a second to let you see the size of the scroll bar. Because the next example I'm going to show, there's a setting in here. You can alter the width of this. But before I do that, I'm going to point out the fact that you have a folder in here that you normally don't see. Control H. Control H just shows me hidden files and folders. Okay, that's all it does. And in most file managers for Linux, modern file managers, Control H does the same thing. Alright, what I'm talking about is this folder here, .icons. It has nothing in it. I normally install manual mouse pointers or cursors in here, and sometimes folder themes. But in general, what happens is when you click this, it auto-generates this folder in Mint. I'm going to delete this on purpose to let you see that feature. Okay, it'll appear here as soon as I click that. There we go. And now I can put my manual mouse pointers or themes in here. On some systems, you have to auto-generate this folder. Right-click, create folder. If you've seen any of my videos, you'll know what I'm talking about. Because I installed mouse pointers only in two places, .icons and USR share icons. That's where this one is installed. Now I'm going to continue. So I'm going to talk about that scroll bar in pictures, this guy right here. Alright, I briefly showed this earlier. So I am in themes. And by the way, when I click this again, it doesn't regenerate that folder all over again. It just makes sure that it's there. If it's not, it creates it. However, if that folder already has stuff in it, it doesn't bother it. It doesn't generate another one. All right, with that said, hopefully I'm clear on this. So I'm going to open this again. So we have a mixed, a dark, and a light. Light theme looks like that. Dark theme looks like that. Mixed is kind of the same. Okay, now we have advanced settings and standard. Simplified, advanced. This is more like from the previous version, 21.1. Mouse pointers, mouse cursors. I have different names for these things. It's kind of like me saying mate or mate for Cinnamon. And for Linux Mint. Linux Mint Cinnamon, Mate, and XFCE. Never mind. I'm going to continue. All right, these cursors or pointers are installed in USR share icons. You can also install your own mouse pointers in dot icons, and it'll appear in here. Let me say this again. If you installed your mouse pointers manually in here, they'll appear in this menu. Okay, let's move on. So I'm going to talk about the scroll bar in a second, because that's why I brought you in here. But I wanted to first go through this screen. So the combination of applications, icons, and desktops are many. Screenshot is what I recommend on this, if you're going to play. Alright, so not so much on the pointer, but these three guys here. I also have add and remove, and I wrote down some notes because when I first installed this, I believe it added 75 of these themes when I did the refresh update cache. So there's additional 75 of these that you can add to whatever Linux Mint provided you with. I think that's probably plenty. But there are still people out there that want to install their own themes. But whatever it is, you can hit the add and hit the install key, and they'll appear in these menus for you to select. All right, without all that said, you can toggle this back and forth. Now I'm going to go to settings. And the setting that I'm going to point out to you is this one right here that's turned off. And I'm going to let you see the size of this scroll bar. Okay, I'm going to turn the hidden ones off and then open up pictures only. So you can see the size of the scroll bar. I'm talking about the width. This is only about the width, not the length, the width. So I'm going to turn this on. And this is default F10. That's what you're looking at right here. I'm going to increase that to double. I'm going to go to 21. I'm going to need to close and reopen. Now that's a little bit wider. Now depending on the size of the icons in here is how long this will get. Okay. I'm just talking about the length. That part there is determined by the size of the icons, not the width. That's determined by this. It's only the width that I'm referring to now, not the length. So whether I make this small or big, the width hasn't changed. So I'm going to show you what the maximum looks like. This will be excessively large, at least in my book. It takes up too much space. So that's a 40. So I'll go in between, somewhere around a 20. 20 would be good. Open and close. Again, a lot of people may not care for this, and I was actually asked by several users about this before. How do you make bigger scroll bars? Well, there you have it. It's done right here. Again, I'm not using any codes. I'm just sliding things on and off. The whole video is going to be like that. You're not going to need to punch in any codes. Okay. All right. With that said, I'm going to continue now. All right. So we have thumbnails. Resizing icons on the fly, you can do it the old-fashioned way. That's the smallest, or you can do it my way. Let me make this bigger. So this will be the smallest. All I'm doing is holding down the control key while using my scroll wheel on my USB mouse. Scrolling backwards, scrolling forward, scrolling backwards, scrolling forward. Scrolling in between. I can also use Control 0 to go to 100%. That's 100%. Holding down the control key, plus, 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 plus. Minus, 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 minus. I think you'll agree holding down the control key, scrolling forward and backwards is a little faster. You can also drag this down here. Hey, there's that scroll bar now. All right, another tip for you folks. If you have never experienced this file manager, Nemo, 5.8.4 is the version. This file manager is set for, and if you alter it, you will not be able to do these, is set for double click. If you change that to single, your desired outcome is different. I'm going to hit the spacebar to get a preview of that. Spacebar to close. Spacebar to preview, spacebar to close. Click on that once, spacebar to preview. Now I'm going to click that to make it full screen. Spacebar to close. Okay. I have some weird wallpapers, yes. Spacebar to open, spacebar to close. Alt and F4 closes any window also, by the way. That's themes. That's usually the most a category that most users focus on. Let me change the background to something dark so it doesn't distract you from that nice looking flower, even though it is a nice beautiful flower there. All right, let me continue to accessibility options. All right, making things larger. There we go. Almost blew my calendar off the page by doing this. Let me move this over and grab a hold of him and move that over. It's just resizing text really quickly. Large text. There's also other options. That's not the reason I brought you in here though. I am going to show you something in the keyboard section called Visual Indicator for caps and numeric lock. So your caps lock key on your keyboard or numeric lock key on your keyboard, some of you folks won't have LEDs on them or lights. Would you like a visual indicator when you push down on those keys? Let's slide this on. Now I can see I pressed the caps lock key or the numeric key. This feature here is also interactive with this one here. If you disable this and you decide to turn this on, I'm going to push down on my caps lock key. You see nothing. And my numeric lock key, you see nothing. Because this disabled it right here. So this overrides this setting right here. Okay? FYI. For your information. I'm going to hit small and push down on the caps lock key. That's a small. That's a medium. And that's a large. Now you know how to change the sizes. Alright, account details was the next box after accessibility. And you can put in your own photo or pick an image or browse your own for your user. You can also do the password thing. Alright, applets belong down here on your panel, and desklets belong on the desktop. I'm going to skip over applets and go to time and date. The current time and date on my panel is not the way it comes from the system. I currently have Monday, July 17th written here. This is how it comes on your system. 24-hour clock. This also is selected for use default location. So that means my calendar will start with Sunday in most cases. Alright, so what does this stuff do? Well, this is AM and PM. Full date. You can throw on the seconds. I'm not going to bother with that. And then the first day of the week, instead of Sunday, you want to make that a Monday. Flip that over to here. And now you're done with the time and date. This is also highly configurable here. If you use custom date and formats, click the show information syntax, and Mike has done a great job of, I love the name of the website. So Mike, goodsturftime.com, has done a great job of making this up, where you can drag elements in here and then they become part of the format, and you can right click and copy those and then paste them into these element boxes. The percent symbol are all explained on Mike's webpage. Let me find that in here under reference. That's where all these percent symbols mean. Close. You don't have to use this at all. Just wanted to bring this up in case you want to customize that. Other than that, I'm going to continue. All right, we have desklets. That's a desklet. I'll only talk about this one. Your desklets are coming from downloads. You only have 3 installed in this area here, and they're deactivated by default. So the desklets, I'm trying to look for my reference. It was 48 when I installed that this morning in this section. I really don't use a lot of these. I do like this one though. It's the calendar desklet. It is configurable. So you can make it see-through or not. You can change the size of it from large to dinky. The technical term, dinky. In other words, small. All right, I gotta have a little humor once in a while, folks. All right, so download section if you want to install stuff. There's also other little goodies in here that you can turn on and off. All right, so desktop. This is for you folks that like icons on here. I'll throw on a bunch of these. This is normally not how big they are. Right click on the desktop, customize. The first option on here is the icon size. This is normally set for either normal or small, if I remember right. I call this one dinky. This is the smallest they go. And this is the largest. If you decide to put icons on your desktop. I normally don't put any icons on mine. However, Linux Mint has this on by default, mounted drives. So let me mount an internal backup drive for a second and let you see what that icon looks like. Providing, of course, what size I picked here. So if it's dinky, it'll look like nothing almost. It's tiny. Too small for me. All right, let's go with larger. Okay, I'm going to turn that off. So if that's something you don't want to look at, but you still want the drive mounted, it's still here. But this is on by default, FYI. Now I'm going to unmount it manually. Okay, so that's desktop. Extensions, I have nothing installed, but this is one here that I like to install once in a while, is transparent panel. It makes the panel transparent, semi-transparent, all those goodies, and it's configurable with 3 options. So the general is something that people overlook. I'm going to talk about the middle selection here. So when you are ready to go home, ready to turn off your computer, restart, whatever, you normally go here and you click, or restart, or suspend, or cancel. And this will remain here until I make a decision. How would you like the system to have a timer where it auto shuts down your system after so many seconds? Then slide this on. I really don't want to use anything below 11 seconds because I'll only have 11 seconds to, describe it and hit cancel, but I'm going to do it anyways. So this is now active and it's starting from 11 seconds. So I need to do something before that hits 0. So I'm going to hit cancel. But you can see that for logging out and shutting down. You put in the time frame. I don't remember what the default is. I want to say 60. But just plug in the whatever numbers you want, plus or minus. Or not. Restarting Cinnamon, you can turn this on and off. Okay. It just restarted Cinnamon. I'm still filming. No problem. Gestures really meant more for your touch screens as opposed to your touch pad, I believe. Because you do have some settings with your touchpad right down here. Alright, so that's gestures. I don't have any devices to demonstrate. Hot corners, I'm going to skip over. Input in languages, same deal. Now on the notifications, this one and this one play together. If you disable it here, this can be active and not display anything. I'm pressing down on my caps. Nothing's happening. So again, they play together. This has to be set for either small, medium, or large. Again, this is small. These only remain on the screen for a second or two. That's medium, and they go away all on their own. And large. I have some videos for applets that shows how to place those kind of indicators on your panel bar. Alright, so test notification has a blue bar on it now, and you can change the timing on how long that remains. And you can also place that on the bottom side of the screen if you like. So if I do it this way, it appears down here. Your choice. Online accounts pulls in calendar and other information for this guy in here. You can also manually add calendar information this way. Punch in your own events. You can also get a hold of the online accounts here. Multiple ways of doing this. The panel, I do have dedicated videos on that, but just be aware there are 3 zones in case you want to play. And your panel visibility is down through here. Auto hide, always show, and intelligently hide. And I do have descriptions on those kind of videos on my YouTube site. You can watch any video for 21.1 and they'll be the same as far as configuration is concerned on that. Preferred apps, you don't like cellular for your music player, you want Rhythm Box? Well, turn it this way. Now you've got Rhythm Box. Privacy, You can turn that on and off. Recent files. Screensaver, 15 minutes. Just gives you a black screen if you don't touch your mouse or keyboard. This one and this one here kind of play together. Just be aware of that. You may want to investigate both settings if you're going to be playing with that. Startup apps, I'm going to actually skip over on Windows. You want the buttons over here or on the left, and a combination of your choice. All right. Most of the tips and tricks that I show in a lot of my videos for Mint are done with these defaults on, by the way. This has to do with your mouse actions. I don't normally alter these. But in case you do, you may find that they don't work properly for you. Some of my tips and tricks. All right, moving along, let's talk about behavior. This is one that people do not know where this setting is, and a lot of people ask about occasionally. And that has to do with if you have ever operated an XFCE desktop and you're trying to get a hold of this edge right here to resize, and it keeps flipping back and forth because it's so sensitive. Well, Mint has this set for that area there. So you have about that much of an area. Now I'm going to show you the benefit of dragging this a little bit wider. Look how far out I'm at right now. I can go all the way to here. Same thing with the bottom screen. I can go from here to right about here to do this. Your choice. And of course you can right click and resize this way also. But this is the border, draggable border width, the triggering mechanism that does your draggable border. And that's a feature that a lot of people overlook. The default is right here. All right, the next one is Alt Tab. Alt and Tab. Got two things open: System Settings and Simple Screen Recorder recording this video. I don't want to see it this way. I want to see it in a different way. How about Timeline? Alt and Tab. There's multiple features in here, by the way. Okay. I'll put it back to default. Window tiling, don't want it, turn it off. Workspaces, I'm going to skip over. I think most people know what those are. All right, Bluetooth, also going to skip over. I don't have any Bluetooth to demo for you, and color profiles. This is GNOME Disk Utility, and I want to open up Display. Everybody has maybe a different monitor. Some people have laptops. They have different options for resolutions and refresh rates. My suggestion to you, if you play, and you can see that I'm capable of filming in 4K if I want to, but I'm filming in this mode today, and also different refresh rates. If you decide to alter these things and you're playing, and you hit apply, and your screen goes black for more than 6 seconds, leave it alone. Try not to reboot your computer and or turning on and off for at least 2 minutes. It normally will actually time out in less than that time, somewhere in the vicinity of 30 seconds. It goes back to your previous resolution or refresh rate because it figures it didn't work. Because normally when you change it, you have to hit accept. And if you can't see your screen to click accept, don't be clicking on mouse or hitting your keyboard or mouse, because you could inadvertently do that. And then you're going to have to either create a new user or reinstall. Those would be the most drastic scenarios. But again, allow it to time out. Allow it to time out. Everybody's screen resolutions are different, and their monitors are also different. You have also scaling, 100% or 200. 200 obviously makes things bigger. All right. With that said, continue on. I have plenty of videos on keyboard shortcuts, so I'm really not going to talk about too many things here. Mouse and touchpad. This is how you resize that pointer size. And keep in mind, if you install some pointers manually, you may find some mouse pointers are non-resizable. It all depends on your screen resolution and how it looks. Touchpad information is also in here. Keep in mind, if you're talking about one of those touch pads, then it's gestures. If you're talking about a touch screen, yeah, I knew I'd do this. Touch screens and tablets, I would probably investigate that one. For the ones that have touch pads, like a laptop, then here, and that area there, if you need to make some changes. All right, I'm going to skip over network. Power management and screensaver again kind of play together. My printers, network discovered. Not going to really get into that. You can turn off your basic sounds in here by doing this. Don't like those noises. Turn them off. System information. And for you folks that want to hang on for the Linux kernel, I'll be there in a second. Driver manager. Don't need a password. If you needed some additional drivers, maybe you're using an NVIDIA card or something. Firewall comes disabled. It's GovW. Don't forget, if you use Warpinator, investigate some roles. Login window, really not going to open. The software sources are coming from only 2 locations. For the Cinnamon, I'm sorry, wrong password. Let's try turning the caps lock. Alright, it's coming from Mint and Ubuntu. If this is LMDE, Linux Mint Debian Edition, this will be Debian. Alright, so basically you have your Cinnamon, your Mate, and XFCE, I believe are all probably the same locations. User groups, if you're installing a user that you don't want them to be in your bookmarks and your folders, install the user and users and groups to make another user. And there's only 2 types. Standard users cannot install programs and make system-wide changes. Administrator user can. So choose wisely when you create additional users. Alt and F4. For you folks that want to change the Linux kernel to a more advanced kernel, click that on your view. If you have never played with Linux kernel, I would highly suggest you take a digital snapshot of this, either on your smartphone or camera, or print this somehow. But you can install 5.19 series kernels. The current kernel that's currently installed right now is a 5.15, the active kernel. The 19 kernels are available for some of you folks that want to play. Keep in mind there's a lot of reasons why you want to use a lower kernel. Compatibility is one of the biggest things. Somebody likes the bleeding edge kind of stuff, or at least higher kernels. There's a 6 dot series out there also, but not with Mint. But again, if everything works for you, leave the kernels alone. That's my advice. But for the ones that like to try the higher kernels, here they are. Don't forget, this menu is resizable. And I'll say thank you for watching.